M.3 Quadrants. And what a quadrant is, so there's the coordinate plane, and this is the positive x-axis, the positive y-axis, negative x, and negative y, right? And we always start on the positive x. In trig, when graphing, you always start on the positive x. And if we're talking about quadrants, we have divided this into 4 different parts. Okay, and so they're always numbered, and it's not a number, it's a Roman number, Roman numeral. And there's quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Yeah, I could go on with that, but I guess I won't. So if we're graphing, let's say 45 degrees. You start on the positive x, and you go 45 degrees. So when that ends, what quadrant would it be in? Quadrant 1, right? I guess I should have reiterated that this is at 0, 90, 180, 270, and if you go 360, you're right back at 0. So 0 and 360 are in the same spot. So they are coterminal angles because they are in the same spot. Now let's talk about 120. Where would 120 be? Well, it's more than 90, but less than 180. So it would be in quadrant 2. Anything between 180 and 270 is in quadrant 3. And anything in between 270 and 360 is in quadrant 4. But what happens if we are at, what if I say 510? Okay, 510 degrees. Well, that's a full circle, right? So if I've went 360, but I need to go more. So we're going to subtract 360 from 510 and get 150. So I have to go 150 more. So that's 90 more. So I need to go 60 more than that. So this is 510, which is the same thing as 150 because they're coterminal. And so 510 is in quadrant 2 and 150 is in quadrant 2. What about, let's see, I'm making things up off the top of my head. 1240 and 1,240 degrees. Well, that's way bigger than a circle. So I'm going to get my calculator out and subtract and get 880. That's still bigger than a circle. So I'm going to subtract 360 again and get 520. That's still bigger. And get 160. Now we can do it. So 160 is about right there. So 1240, 880, 520, and 160 all end in the same spot, which is right here, and that's in quadrant 2. Okay, so let me erase right here. I probably shouldn't have done that. I'll probably come back to that in a minute. Okay, so let's get started. In what quadrant does the terminal side a 45-degree angle and take form position line. Quadrant 1. In what quadrant is 225? Well, 225 is bigger than 180, but smaller than 270. So that's in quadrant 3. 510 minus 360 is 150, which we've already done that. So quadrant 2. 600 minus 360 is 240, and 240 is in quadrant 3. Negative 135, what does that mean? So let's go back up. So negative 135 means we're still starting at positive x, but instead of going counterclockwise, we're going to go clockwise. And I have forgotten my angle. 135. So from here to here is negative 90. From here to here is negative 180. So negative 135 is going to be in the third quadrant. Or there's another way of doing it. We could have started at negative 135, and instead of subtracting 360, we could add it to get a positive answer, which is 225. And 225 is the same thing as negative 135. They're in the same spot. Negative 225 plus 360 is going to be 135, and 135 is in quadrant 2. The reason I knew that is because we just used those numbers. Okay, so which ray is the terminal side of 360 degree angle in stator position? Well, since 360 is the same thing as 0, and 0 is the positive x-axis. Zero, 90, 180, 270. So for 180, 180 is on the negative x. 1080. Because I've done these for so long, I'm not going to subtract 360 and subtract 360 and subtract 360. I'm going to subtract 2 circles, because 360 plus 360 is 720, and I'm just going to get there faster, which is 360. And 360 is the same thing as 0, and 0 is a positive x. Negative 360 just means that you start on the positive x and you go this way, but you're still ending up at 0, which is positive x. Negative 990 plus 720. Negative 270. So if this is 0, 90, 180, and 270, this is 0, negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, negative 360. Okay, so they flip-flop. So negative 270 is the same thing as a positive 90, and positive 90 is a positive y. So on these, which quadrant does terminal side 7 pi over 4 lie? Well, we're not really comfortable with the radians yet, right? So what you could do, instead of radians, we can convert it to degrees. So 7 times 180 divided by 4 is 315. And 315 is between 270 and 360. So that's in quadrant 4. If this was positive and then this is negative, what do you think is going to happen without doing the math? It's going to be in quadrant 1 because it makes a negative 315. And negative 315 is right here. So that's in quadrant 1. Zero, 360, right? 0, 2 pi. Because remember, pi is the same thing as 180. So if we double it, we get 2 pi to get 360. And 2 pi would be the same thing as negative 2 pi. So if this is negative 4 pi, those would be the same. So that'd be the positive x. So in closing, we have 4 quadrants. They go in counterclockwise method, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 0 to 90 is in quadrant 1. 90 to 180 is in quadrant 2. 180 to 270 is quadrant 3. 270 to 360 is in quadrant 4.